How's it going, everyone? Sorry for Mother SpongeBob. That was the day. It's July 1st, 2021, and today we're, of course, going to talk about Tropical Storm Elsa, which does have a chance of developing into hurricane status. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current water vapor imagery for Tropical Storm Elsa. And as you can see, we're beginning to see convection on the northeastern side of this storm. The circulation is located right here, and it does look mildly organized, but of course it's far from perfect, because you see on the northwestern side of the circulation there's a lot of dry air, and that's inhibiting it from gradually developing as it heads further westward. And not only that, it's moving very fast to the west, west-northwest at 28 miles per hour. And to put that in perspective, the typical speed for a tropical cyclone moving through the main development region is around 10 to 15 miles per hour. So Tropical Storm Elsa is nearly going twice the average speed of a tropical cyclone, and that's somewhat limiting its development because that creates a lot of wind shear, because lower level winds are far faster than the winds we're seeing in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And if the convection isn't vertically stacked, and we have strong wind shear on the lower levels where we're seeing a difference between the convection between different levels of the atmosphere, that makes it difficult for a tropical cyclone to develop, because it's very difficult for the air molecules to focus around center of circulation when it's being pushed around by just strong wind shear, especially in the lower levels of the atmosphere where the storm is moving very quickly to the west northwest at this time. But we do see just enough convection on the eastern side of this storm to where it is considered a tropical storm at 45 miles per hour. If we were to take a look at its current status, it's around 45 miles per hour with the central millibar pressure at 1,005 millibars. So it is around, so the millibar pressure is a little high for a 45 mile per hour storm, and that's because the circulation is currently very small with this storm. So the winds are more compact, and the convection is more compact over a small center of circulation. And again, it's moving west northwest at a very fast 28 miles per hour. So it is moving quite fast. And in terms of the future strength of this, I don't think it's going to really develop rapidly as it heads further westward until it passes the Lesser Antilles, where the conditions will become a little bit more favorable for tropical cyclone development. And one of the reasons why is, of course, the dry air that's just to the northwest of it, and it's moving quite fast for the time being, but it's eventually expected to slow down moving forward. If we were to take a look at the wind shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you're going to see that there's a decent amount of wind shear as a result of how fast this storm is moving, and it's going to stay with the storm for quite a while, but eventually it is expected to lessen down once it reaches the Caribbean islands such as Hispaniola and Cuba. So it does have a higher chance of developing past the Lesser Antilles. And you might be asking, well, how much it could develop over the next several days past the Lesser Antilles. Well, it really all depends on, again, the speed of the storm. If this storm moves slower than expected, then that would allow the storm to be a little bit more vertically stacked, and the air molecules to focus in the center of circulation. And of course, the southern side of the storm would become a lot stronger when it comes to wind speed, because the lower level winds won't be as strong. And the lower level winds, by the way, are coming directly from the east at this time. So the southern side of the storm, where the winds should face westward, wouldn't be going against lower level winds as strong if the storm were to move slower. So it will develop more of a full circulation, and we will begin to see convection on southern side of the storm for this to develop rapidly. However, if the lower level winds continue to be very fast from the from the east, then that would mean that it's going to be more difficult for this storm to gradually develop as it heads further west northwestward. However, it seems pretty likely at this point, I'd say, that this will maintain at least tropical storm status, because for one thing is that while the lower level winds are inhibiting this from reaching its max potential when it comes to strength, the lower level winds are somewhat enhancing the winds on the northern side of this storm, and if the lower level winds were strong, it'll inhibit its max potential. But however, it wouldn't really completely kill this storm either. So I do expect this to maintain at least tropical storm strength over the next several days, despite the stronger wind shear and the dry air, as I don't think there's going to be any major factors that would pretty much prevent this from weakening into anything less than a tropical storm. However, it does become interesting once we head into the Friday, when it becomes Saturday, when the storm gets very close to land, because at this point we need to keep in mind that the islands of Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, and Jamaica, they're all very mountainous, and if this storm were to move directly over one of these islands, it does have a chance to completely kill the storm. So we need to also keep in mind of what land interaction this storm will encounter, because that'll be again very important in terms of strength of the storm going forward, especially going as the storm heads closer and closer to the United States. And the track currently is fairly uncertain at this time, because while the GFS model is taking somewhat of a concerning track, where it's taking quite a strong storm at 985 millibars just south of Hispaniola, which is the equivalent to a high-end tropical storm, or maybe even a low-end Category 1 hurricane, the European model is disagreeing almost completely with what the GFS model is saying, where the European isn't quite as strong, and it takes it a track well further up northward to the point where it hits Hispaniola and then moves directly northward out to sea, and pretty much dissipating by the 4-day mark on July 5th. So there is quite a large disagreement with the computer models, which pretty much makes it seem like there's going to be a lot of uncertainty once this storm heads past the 3 to 4 day mark, because we have two of the main most reliable computer models disagreeing with each other, with the European taking a far northward track than the GFS model and far weaker than the GFS model. However, it seems better, or at least more reliable, to lean towards the GFS model's track, because if we were to take a look at the ensemble members at this point, you see most of the ensemble members from the GFS model are taking the track further southward, where it'll move just south of Hispaniola, and it'll move, and majority of them are taking it to the Gulf of Mexico, while there are certainly a few that take it just east of Florida, but it's pretty much outweighed by the amount of ensemble members taking it towards the Gulf of Mexico. So a further southward track should be expected, and track further westward as well. And even if we were to take a look at the European ensemble member, while the single European computer model is taking a track well further northward, most of the ensemble members disagree otherwise, and they take it very similar to what the GFS model is saying. So the best bet is to really go with the GFS model, since it's taking that, since most of the ensemble members are agreeing with that track at this point. However, we certainly cannot rule out the fact that the European model is taking that track further northward, and we can't rule out that scenario from happening, especially since the European is still an extremely reliable computer model, but it seems like the current agreement from most of the ensemble members and spaghetti models is that this will take the track further southward and eventually head very close to Florida or into potentially the Gulf of Mexico. So the United States, even the Gulf Coast, needs to at least be aware of this storm at this point. What would determine the track of this storm? Well, it really all depends on the ridging in the lower levels, because we obviously see Bermuda Ridge located in this region, and And it really all depends on how far west this ridge will be. Because if it's further westward, then you should expect to track further southward and to the west, where more of the Gulf of Mexico states will get impacted. However, if this were to move further eastward, then a more northward track should be expected. And there's still, again, that possibility that it stays out to sea, which would definitely be the best case scenario where it wouldn't impact the United States. However, it seems more, I'd say it's more likely at this point that this will impact Florida and maybe move into the Gulf of Mexico. So I'd say just pay very close attention to this. I wouldn't say prepare now because there's still a decent amount of uncertainty, but I'd say as of right now, the more likely scenario is that this moves into the Gulf of Mexico and impacts Florida. And in terms of the uncertainty regarding the strength of this storm, again, it really all depends on how fast the storm moves. The land interaction will be extremely important because there's a possibility that if this moves over one of the islands, it could completely dissipate into a tropical depression or even less than that. And after that, it may be very difficult for this storm to recover from going over one of these islands because these islands are known to kill a lot of tropical cyclones, and even after they go over the islands, there could be that chance of wind shear as a result of an upper level low moving into the United States at this time. So it might be difficult for this to recover after it moves over the islands. So we certainly need to watch land interaction as well, and the dry air will be another factor because the dry air won't completely disappear over the next several days, because you see there's a lot of dry air just to let me go further backward. And you see there's a lot of dry air still to the west of the storm, and it won't really go away. And depending on how much dry air entrains the storm, it could definitely determine the track. However, the current consensus from the computer models, I'm taking a look again at the ensemble members, they're mostly taking, I'd say, like a strong tropical storm at this point, and there are some taking it to category 1 hurricane status based off of the ensemble members of GFS model. So I'd say the most likely scenario is that this remains a strong tropical storm around the islands, and if it were to avoid land interaction, there could be that chance it does re-strengthen into strong tropical storm, or maybe even hurricane status in the Gulf of Mexico. So we need to certainly keep that in mind, but the current consensus is that this will be a strong tropical storm. Now, in terms of my forecasted path and strength of the storm, keep in mind this is all my speculation to seek to make decisions, seek official guidance from National Hurricane Center. But based off what I'm seeing from the GFS model, the ensemble members, I do expect this to maintain strong tropical storm status all the way through and potentially re-strengthening even more on Tuesday. This is based off of the GFS model because, again, taking a look at the GFS model, the GFS model takes this as a strong tropical storm just south of Hispaniola, but as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico, we see a 978 millibar storm, which is equivalent to hurricane status, and based off of that, I do expect it to reach peak intensity just before it reaches Florida. But again, still a lot of uncertainty 5 days out. I don't want to narrow down the impacts for Florida just yet because there's still a possibility it could completely miss Florida, or we don't see a tropical storm much at all in Florida if it goes directly over the islands. But at this point, I do expect the most likely scenario is that we're going to see a strong tropical storm all the way through, and maybe even a hurricane if this were to avoid land interaction, and if this storm avoids a lot of dry air and wind shear as it heads further westward. So there's something to now at least be alert of in Florida, because now you're in the projected path of this storm. So keep that in mind. And for the islands, I will say prepare now. And even for Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, while a lot of you guys are certainly out of the cone. You need to keep in mind that the northeastern side of the storm will be the strongest, will receive the most precipitation. So you guys need to keep in mind of heavy rain and flash flooding, especially in the higher elevations where it's very common. So make sure you guys in the Caribbean islands pay close attention to this, from Cuba, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and headed into Puerto Rico and Haiti. You guys need to pay close attention to this, because it is likely you guys will experience tropical storm force impacts from this and heavy rain. And remember when you see a body of water, turn around, don't drown, as typically the water is a lot deeper than you think. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. I hope you guys have a good day.